stretching. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
I'm Steve.
Mark.
And this is Smokey Steve and Mark.
Oh, yes, it is.
Welcome or welcome back.
Oh, yes. Happy hump day, everybody.
Happy hump day.
Yeah, we made it halfway through the week.
We have. I took off today.
Yeah, you did.
I did. Well, you were off, too.
Yeah.
So we had a few odds and ends to get done.
We did.
Far less than it sounds like. But we had a couple, 2-3 things to
Yeah,
do.
we had some running around to do, and we did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I left the house.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it was a good time. It was very hot today. Very hot
very
today.
warm here today. I know some of our friends over more towards the west of the country, they're experiencing some winter-like conditions, we hear.
What did they say? It was in Colorado. It was like
Denver.
101, and then 2 days later there was like a winter storm warning.
I know, crazy.
Nothing surprises me anymore.
Our friend in Chicago said the same thing. It's kind of like that, an extreme drop in temperature. So
I don't get it.
But we're hot over here on the East Coast.
If it was in fact raining, then I don't think I'd be surprised.
Yeah, right.
At this point,
I know.
So,
but hey,
what are you gonna do?
We
you
have an
can't
air
control the
conditioner,
weather,
and I'm happy with that.
I'm happy with that too.
I hate it whenever the weather is that right in between temperature outside where the air conditioner won't kick on, but it's too hot to sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't care what they say. When you turn so that it brings the outside air in on the air conditioner, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
Unless maybe that's just ours, but ours is a newer air conditioner. I don't know. I'd rather have the window open on nights like that. But the air conditioner's in the window, and I fear if I take the air conditioner out.
I don't think that hard about it. He's twisted about it almost every night. I just sleep.
I am. Well, I like it cold to sleep. I can't.
I do too, but it's not enough to fall on a sword for. I mean, if it's, oh no, it's a little warm, take the blanket off.
I don't sleep with a blanket.
You have a sheet.
I have a sheet. I sleep with a sheet, not a blanket.
Take the sheet
even
off.
in the winter. But I do have my little blanket there in case I need it.
Yeah. These are really first world problems we're having here.
I know, right?
This is really some petty privilege shit we're complaining about.
Yeah. So let's just get right to our topic today.
Shall we?
We're doing a little more serious video today. So
we're doing a little Q&A, actually.
Yeah, we are. We're doing the first, I guess it's the second in the series if you want to be technical about it, but but it's the first, and September is National Suicide Awareness Month and Prevention and Awareness Month, and it is also National Recovery Month here in the States. And to kind of observe that or honor that, we did a video where we asked for your questions and your comments, and we got together, and we're going to answer them to the best of our abilities. So this video is going to be centering around recovery and addiction, and we'll do a few more of them through the month. And we of course, we can't answer them all in one video. I mean, that's why we're going to do a few of them. But we have a few to go over today, and like I said, it's going to revolve around addiction and recovery. So I guess we should start basically and tell you what it is that we do for a living. Because it ties in a little bit.
Yeah, there was a little bit of like, well, what the hell do they do?
What do they do for a living? Yeah, I know, right?
So we'll talk, I guess, disqualifications or qualifications. We're both in recovery.
Yeah, we're both have lived experience, yes.
Yeah, well, alcohol's a drug. Say what? It's a drug. So we both deal with drug addiction. Mark's drug of choice was different than mine. I've been in recovery for, I'm going to say, 8 years. And I work as a certified peer specialist. That's on the mental health side of things. So I work for a mental health agency, and I'm certified through the state of Pennsylvania. It's a reimbursable service through Medicaid. So it's billable hours, 1 phone call, 3 minutes of paperwork. To work with individuals who also have mental health concerns, to try to work on goal setting and improve the quality of their life while still having a mental health issue. I provide education to individuals, so I'll speak in front of groups at mental health centers, in front of administrators, county officials, administrators who don't know. They like to hear it from a real live person who's been there before. And I work with transition age youth, 16 to 24 years old, and working on the same thing. A lot of them are foster kids. They're in group homes, and they're just aging out into the adult system. So I get to hang out with teenagers who are always fun.
Fun. I was going to say fun.
They call me
so
Mr. Steve.
To me.
Mr. Steve. I thank them for the respect and tell them never to call me that again. So that's my professional bit of what I do, and then my own lived experience with addiction and mental health I've shared like 1,000 times. Yeah. So that's where I'm coming from when we're talking about our experiences and how we're weighing in on this.
Yeah.
And you?
And I also have lived experience, and I think it's important to know, too, that, you know, when we do videos such as this, like where we're going to try to answer questions, or maybe, you know, we're not, quote, professionals, you know, and these are our opinions, you know, and no matter what comes out during our question and answering, we do encourage you to, you know, seek answers elsewhere too. I mean, we're just a couple of guys on YouTube that are sharing our experiences and, you know, a bit of what we do professionally, but for the most part, you know, these are our opinions, you know, so kind of want to give that disclaimer, I guess, if you want to.
Just to lay the groundwork.
We do have a lot of lived experience with it, I will say that. But in my job, I recently made a change in professions. I was a chef my whole life. About a year ago, I switched into the position that I have now, and my official title is intake specialist, and I work for a health group, and we predominantly deal with people who have addiction issues. You know, but we can get more into that later. But I mean, officially, I'm basically a medical receptionist right now. I mean, you know, especially with COVID going on.
Yeah.
And I begin training in about 2 weeks to become ultimately a counselor, but there's steps to getting into being a counselor, and that would be an addiction counselor, so a DNA counselor. So that's our credentials.
There you go. So, well, we have questions.
So we do have questions. I guess we'll start. Well, I have mine written down. Do you? I'll start with.
I have mine on.
You know what? I'll start with this one because it actually deals with my job a little bit too. So we're not going to use anybody's name or anything. We thought of reaching out to every person saying, hey, should we use your name or not? But I'm not going to give anybody's name. The question's more important, I think.
Mine was a public comment on the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
if someone wants to find...
I got the emails, and he got the public comments.
I got the ones from YouTube.
Yeah. So anyway,
at any rate,
basically, this person told me a little bit about their story, and the question is, can you explain MAT to me? My son wants to do it, but I just don't understand it. MAT is medication-assisted treatment, and that's predominantly what we do where I work in my health group. We do other things, but that's, I would say 90% of our patients are MAT patients. And so yeah, I would be more than happy to explain to you. I kind of expanded upon it a little bit in the last video, but I can tell you exactly what it is now. Back in the day, there was no MAT. I mean, they were really pushing, the only way to get sober was to, go to a rehab for 30 days and then good luck. There were really no medications to help you with addiction, in recent years, and we're going back 10,
quite a bit of time.
15. I don't know exactly how long, but I don't know when the first. I don't know. It's at least 15 years. 10 to 15 years in that range. There were some medications that were brought out that help people with addiction, and predominantly Subutex, Suboxone, Vivitrol. Old school medications such as Antabuse. Antabuse was for alcoholics, and when they took this drug, it didn't prevent them from drinking, but if they drank while taking Antabuse, they would get violently sick and throw up. It's still prescribed today, but we don't where we're at, we don't even have one patient that gets prescribed that, but there are still people that prescribe that. Vivitrol is a monthly injection that you get, and it's usually done right in your butt,
Hurts like a bitch. I've had one.
Yeah, and the active ingredient naltrexone it originally was supposed to help opiate addicts, opiates being heroin, painkillers, and the like. And it was supposed to, what it literally does on the molecular level, it blocks the opiate receptors in your brain. You can't absorb the opiates. Okay, so this is a once-a-month shot that blocks that. So even if you do heroin, even if you do any type of opiate, you will feel no effects from it at all. Then as the drug evolved and was kept being prescribed, they had found that it had other uses. Predominantly, most recently, they have found a lot of success for gamblers. In fact, they're saying it's one of the only medications that has been proven to help with people with gambling problems, and also with people who are alcoholics, and zeroing right in on the cravings for alcohol. Now, you have some experience with that because you essentially take Vivitrol, but in the pill form.
I take naltrexone, oral, 50 milligrams. That's about the prescribed dose.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think it's a sin it wasn't offered at the first rehab I ever went to.
Yeah.
I think it's important for consumers to have access to all available treatments and things that are out there. I brought it up to my mental health professional, and I've been on it for years, and it's the craving. It's the craving that it takes care of. I never found that kind of dulling of a craving in any other sort of treatment, community support, self-help group, or anything like that. Very simple, no side effects.
Yeah.
Take it. And I've known folks who also take it for controlling with weight, non-suicidal self-injury, handling that, impulse control.
Impulse is another
food
benefit
issues.
of it. Impulse control. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're just starting, like you've just mentioned, they're just starting mainstream. What do you call it? Like testing records. To make it more evidence-based for people with eating disorders and like that. So I think we're going to be hearing a little more about that in the future in the MAT community, So
it's very inert. Like, I don't think there's a whole lot of side effects.
No,
to
there's
it
not.
All, so.
No, there's not, and it's not one that you have to, wean off of when you're done with it. Like it's a fairly safe medication so far. So.
There's also methadone, but that's pretty old, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't get into that yet.
Oh, okay.
That's an older one.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's old school.
Yeah, but since you mentioned it, methadone also was brought out. It really was mainstream in the Vietnam War, although it can be traced back to World War I and World War II too. But it was they had found that people coming back from the war, were in a lot of pain, and they became addicted to painkillers and heroin. Heroin was huge then. It was the government's answer to deal with all of these veterans who were addicted and dealing with pain, So they came up with a synthetic opiate, and it was methadone. And, that still is prescribed today. It's very, very controlled. You hear stories about the methadone clinic, people lining outside to get the Tang drink, that's methadone. Methadone also is available in pill form in 10 milligram pills, and on not quite so popular terms, it's prescribed for pain management too. I have a little bit of experience with methadone. My grandfather actually was prescribed methadone for pain, which I thought was very odd back in, and this goes back years, but I thought it was very, very odd. He had went through all of the he started with the Percocet, and then he graduated to the Oxys, then he had the fentanyl patches, and then ultimately ended up on pain management with methadone, and it was terrible. It was just not a good experience. But most popular today is Suboxone and Subutex. And Suboxone is a combination of buprenorphine, which is an opiate, pain reliever, painkiller, and naltrexone together in one pill or a sublingual strip that you put under your tongue. The benefit of this is that, what I personally believe is the number one fear of somebody quitting their drug of choice, if they're on heroin, the number one deterrent, the number one thing is fear, right? And the fear is withdrawal. Withdrawal from opiates, many kind of opiates, is pretty terrible. It's hell. Most people won't die from it, but you do feel like you want to die. It's a terrible, terrible experience, and it keeps a lot of addicts out there continuing to use. This erases all of that. With this medication, you don't go through withdrawal, and so what's the fear then?
Yeah.
Which I think is brilliant. Now, Subutex, which is almost the same except for there's no naltrexone in that, which basically is straight buprenorphine, which would be a painkiller.
Yeah.
Right? So there comes in the controversy with it. If somebody is on Subutex, are they clean or are they not clean?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to determine, and this is where therapy and counseling comes in, you have to determine the quality of your life. Is your life unmanageable while you're on Subutex? It certainly was while you were on heroin.
Yeah, there's not a lot of functioning heroin addicts.
It allows you to regain your life and function a normal life. With the assistance of medication. And that's the theory behind MAT. This was never offered years and years ago. And in fact, when I had my bouts with rehabs and things like that, it was not even, the first time, it wasn't even around at all. And then it started to become a little bit more mainstream. So that, did I answer the question? Can you explain MAT? Yeah, I think I'm explaining it okay. So, I mean, in a nutshell, that's what MAT is, medication-assisted treatment for dependence. And I have to say I'm an advocate for it. It's the only thing that worked for me after years and years of addiction. I chose that route, and it did work for me. And in the profession that I'm in now, I see it firsthand how it's helping people, a lot. Now, like with most other medications, it's not like you just take a pill and you're magically fixed. It's not like that. The success rate comes with a multifaceted approach to it, and that is medication, therapy. I mean, and that's how I believe that you have very, very good success with MAT. So I hope that answered your question.
Answered all my questions about MAT.
Did I leave anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. These type of medications, the doctors have to have a special training for. It's not like you can just go to any doctor and get these type of medications, although it's becoming a little more widespread now.
There used to be a stigma about doctors that had the Data 2000 waiver, and they could only carry 30 patients at a time, and the next year 100.
Right.
Some of the rules have changed.
And like anything, it is a medication. It can be abused. It can be sold. There's all those. But the percentage of that is so much lower as opposed to, say, pain pills or, being on heroin. So, I don't know. I think that's it about that.
Okay. MAT.
MAT. I would definitely look into it.
It's a good tool.
It's a very good tool.
It's always good to have a toolbox with lots of tools, because if one doesn't work, you can pick up another.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have one from the YouTube world. It was under the recovery video we did. This has a few moving parts to it, so I'll read it off. Have you seen the documentary The Bridge? It shares stories of people who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. It was very powerful. Yes, I have. I've actually met Kevin Hines, the gentleman who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and lived. I've met him several times. Nice guy. He's very short. He's like 5'6". It's not relevant, but he's very short. My sister's ex took his life, and his youngest daughter was only 6 years old. She's had addiction problems since the age of 12 and is 30 years old now, been homeless for many years. She walks around in strange clothes and has no real friends. Well, she went into a store, put her hand under her coat, and pretended to have a gun asking for money. They knew her from always coming in to use the bathroom and did not take her serious, but it scared the customers, so the police were called, and she's in jail facing prison for attempted robbery. I put in an appeal for her to get placed in a hospital, however, I'm not sure how that works. No one has advocated for her, so what advice do you have for me going forward? She doesn't have a mean bone in her body, she's very childlike in many ways, it's just sad all around. Yeah, that is sad.
It is sad.
All around. Talk about falling through the cracks. Addiction starts young. It can start very young. And I think with addiction, mental health too, they're moving away from the kind of question. It's less like, what's wrong? And it's more like, what happened? Because, I mean, trauma, I'm guessing? Something, when a big event happens and then a person changes completely afterwards, something seemed to have happened. Just from the details that were written, it sounds like there could be quite a bit going on. Homelessness. She has needs all over the place, and has now been arrested. Different counties in different states go about dealing with folks with mental health issues in the judicial system in different ways. In the county I live in, it's actually pretty progressive. They have what's called treatment courts. So they take into consideration that if the person who committed the crime might have a mental illness or may have dealt with addiction. We have drug court, we have DUI court, we have mental health court. So it explains it, but it doesn't excuse it.
Yeah.
So what it makes the person do, sometimes pre-sentence, maybe go into a hospital setting or rehab.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that pre-sentence, and then sometimes it takes time off the jail time. It mitigates the sentence. Sometimes people are prescribed at sentencing, prescribed, at least in the word, ordered, to engage in treatment of some kind, outpatient treatment, inpatient treatment. And they still have choices. You know, you could skip treatment and stay in jail. I mean, that's always an option. If she is in jail, they may have access to mental health and addiction resources. They may not. I know sometimes 12-step groups come in, or they don't. Sometimes there's a psychiatrist, sometimes there isn't. The prisons use old drugs because they're cheap. Yeah. That's, you know, statewide here, and I think it's probably nationwide, because Pennsylvania is not awful. We're not great, but we're not awful.
Yeah.
It's so challenging. I would think a hospital would be a good place. It sounds like she's ill, not a criminal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Say that, yeah.
It doesn't sound like, you know, desperation. It sounded like desperation. I need money, let me go do this. And did not consider the consequences that could have come with it. As far as advocating for her, I hope she has an attorney. The attorney would be the best advocate. If the attorney is not familiar with her circumstances, it's not unheard of for people to write judges. Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, especially because she's in the legal system now.
She's stuck in the legal system. Yeah. She's going to be there. That sometimes is the thing that forces a person into hell. Mark will touch on that probably in a little bit. But sometimes things can give a person a punch into getting some treatment. By force, by hook, or by crook, they get shoved into it. I was in the legal system when I got well. The rehab that helped me the most, where I got back on my feet, was when I was court-ordered to. If I left, it was an escape charge.
Yeah.
So a person doesn't have to be excited about treatment or engaged in treatment for it to work. There's I think, a misconception that someone has to be ready or willing or able. You can lock someone somewhere for 90 days, and it might take anyway. Yeah. It's like any other treatment. You don't have to have a great attitude about chemo. It'll either work or it won't.
Right.
It's going to work regardless of your attitude towards it. So that happens with drug and alcohol treatment as well. So I don't know. As far as advice, usually people have pushed away a lot of family. By this point, it's very difficult to be a caretaker or a family member for someone who's so ill that they're homeless. It's usually just worry and disgust. Yeah. That's what I get when family members call me for issues like this. Worry, disgust. And good for you for looking out for her. Yeah. Because somebody has to. Well, no one has to, but it's great that somebody does. Yeah. Keep an eye on it. I've seen people more far gone than this get well. So, I mean, whoever... Absolutely. No matter who's in your life that you think, I've never met someone sicker than this, they're sicker people. Oh, yeah. There are sicker people. And sometimes people need short-term care. Sometimes they need long-term care. And that's no matter what the affliction may be. You know, we have physical therapy for people who have broken bones. You know, we have long-term drug and alcohol treatment in group settings for people getting back on their feet with addiction and homelessness. There's like Salvation Army programs. There's Christian ones. There's secular ones. There's ones reimbursed through insurance. There's free ones. If you got money, you can pay. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways people can go around it. I'm assuming if she's homeless, she'll have access to Medicaid because she probably has no income. So that'll give her some options as far as treatment coming out of jail. I suspect, given what they think, I suspect they're not going to hit her with an attempted robbery charge.
Probably not.
I think it'll be drawn down. Again, not a lawyer, as well as not a doctor.
But just being involved with it for so long. I've seen a few of these too, and hopefully, fingers crossed, you know.
Yeah. But God bless you for caring, because a lot of people have probably cut her off at this point. Yeah. And can you blame them? Right. When we're sick, we're exhausting. Oh, yes. Addicts are exhausting.
Oh, yes.
We will steal your stuff. We will steal your sleep. I've stolen hours of sleep from my mother, I'm sure. Hours, days, weeks, months. So, it is a sad situation, but I hope going forward that there's some opportunities for her to get help. Kudos to you for being the one looking out, even though it's a tough situation. And feel free to keep us posted.
Yeah, definitely.
This is the kind of thing, like at work, this would be a typical call I would get. A lot of moving parts. What can I do? How can I help? And then I never hear how it ends.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I never hear how it ends.
You, yeah.
So take my advice with a grain of salt, because every situation is different. But that's my perspective. That's what I got. What do you have next?
Okay. Question, okay. All right, I thought this was an interesting question. Okay, and again, this was from email. How do I know when to intervene or practice, quote, tough love? It would be very difficult to kick my partner out until he gets his shit together. Also, I have a fear that he may get hurt, arrested, or even worse out there. I feel that he at least is safe home here with me. Do interventions still exist? Are they a good idea? I would love your opinion. So that's interesting. That question stuck out to me.
You should talk to my mother.
Yeah,
this is almost identical to the situation I put them in.
You know, it's a very difficult decision to make, whether or not to dive in and help somebody who is suffering from addiction.
We have a visitor.
He wanted to give his 2 cents.
He was in the doghouse yesterday. He hissed at me.
Yes, he did.
But today he's okay.
He hissed at Daddy.
Oh, off the table. No cats on the table. What do you think this is? Foodie Beauty? Sorry.
Anyway, so all right. So my advice, my personal advice on this is, it's a very difficult decision to make, whether or not to help someone or get involved with somebody, a loved one, a family member, a friend who is suffering from addiction. The number one thing I'm going to have to say on this, in my opinion, is that you need absolutely to take care of yourself during this process. Addiction is a family disease, and that includes extended family and friends too. You can get sucked in very, very quick and become very, very unhealthy yourself. And I don't mean by picking up a drug and taking it. You know, there's many other ways that you get unhealthy dealing with this. I encourage you to go, I just posted something today on our Facebook page. Go to our Facebook page today. It's September 9th today, at this video. And I posted a link to a very, very good article that has some solid advice, suggestions, resources there about this topic, about when to step in to help my loved one. Should I step in to help my loved one? You know, what are the consequences of doing it? What are the consequences of not doing it? You know, all those. Very, 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 very interesting. And it has a lot of good advice. But definitely, you have to take care of yourself first. That's the first thing. Now, as far as interventions go, I personally am not a fan of interventions. It's just my opinion. I'm not a fan of it. I have been on both sides of it, you know, and I try to put myself in the other person's shoes. Okay, the addict, everybody, like the TV show, everybody comes in, surrounds him, and gives him an ultimatum. Right now you're leaving for rehab or not, or you're done and kicked out. Now, every situation is different, and you may have reached the end of the line, you know, and like she said in here, you know, when is it time to practice or what did she call it? Oh, tough love. When is it time to practice tough love or not? You know, each situation is unique in that, you know, but I would reach out and I would get support before you dive into anything like that. As far as intervention goes, there's something called CRAFT. It's CRAFT, and it stands for Community Reinforcement and Family Training. It's an evidence-based method for helping families get help for addicted loved ones. It's pretty much replaced traditional interventions right now. It's evidence-based. It's a preferred method of helping people with addiction get the help they need, such as therapy. Again, it's in that article, and we're going to post some resources in the description below, which we'll get to in a minute, and I'll put the link to that there too. A wealth of information, and a professional person kind of leading you, I think, is your best bet in this, because it seems like you're really, really entwined. It's your partner. I don't know if it's your, if you're married or not or whatever. I don't know, but obviously you're it's very deep, and there's love there. So, number one, take care of yourself. Number two, get support before you do it. If you're going to do an intervention, or if you want to even just sit down and talk to this person. As far as kicking them out, I can't advise you on that. Each situation is unique, you know.
They are so different.
They're so very different. I was never a fan of that, but I also understand, the situations are so different. I mean, you may have been, robbed by your loved one. You may have been hurt by your loved one in a physical way. You've certainly been hurt in an emotional way. That is, your decision to make. And but I wouldn't do it without getting support.
I would say definitely support first, because if it goes south, you need someone to talk to.
You yourself.
You need someone to talk to if it goes south.
Absolutely.
And I can only speak. I never had an intervention.
I never did either. I was part of one, but
I lived with my parents through the bulk of my addiction. I lived alone for 1 year of it, and then I lived with them for the rest of it. And different families, different approaches. My mom had a friend who they had interventions and threw the person out, and they're still out there using 10 years later. And my parents let me stay in their house. It was a different approach. Rather than, imagine me, I was practically 4 years old. I had no discipline, no bearings, nothing. And rather than let me walk out into traffic, get hurt, and say, see, these are your consequences, they threw an arm out and went, he can't make decisions for himself right now, he's not well. So they kept me alive. The rehab was transformative in my life, but the people who kept me alive till I got there were my parents. But that's not every household.
It's not every
I was an
household,
adult child. They took that on, and it wasn't their responsibility. They chose to take me on to do that. And I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
But that's not every family. That's not everyone's responsibility. Plus, I had some mental health issues. They were worried about the or worse. They're my parents. And a parent-child is different than spouse, partner. Our boundaries are different than I had with my parents. Ours are a little more, strict between the two of us. But interventions, I've heard people do it and say it got the person out, they went to rehab and it saved their life. And I've also heard people say, I threw them out, they disappeared for a week, and then they found them in a hotel room.
Yeah.
So,
Or worse. I mean, she even mentioned that in the question. One of her big fears is that he's going to get hurt, arrested, or die.
Yeah.
And it's a scary thing, and like he said, and why I wish I could just say this is what you should do, period. Every situation is unique. Like Steven said, you may have mental health issues going on in the background of these behavioral health issues. A lot of times it's not just a person being addicted to drugs. There are a lot of other things going on that kind of need to be addressed for the person to get well.
Yeah. And certainly exactly what Mark said. Nobody has the right, I don't care if they're your partner, and nobody has the right to hit you in the face. Nope.
No.
And
if you're in an abusive situation like that,
easier said than done.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But if your partner gets loaded and hits you in the face, call the police. Because that sets a standard that it can happen
give
again.
Advice like I will say. I will
absolutely.
back that advice. Yes.
The addiction may explain it again, but it doesn't excuse it. It has to be dealt with. Your safety, especially if you're in a couple and you are the sober one, or the one who isn't the addict, and you have children. You have to be accountable to be the grown-up for them as well, because they need protecting by an adult. So there's a lot of moving parts. And I'm a single guy. There's pieces of it that don't apply to me. Right. Imagine if I had kids.
Yeah.
Woo! What a mess. Yeah. So it's challenging.
It is challenging.
But again, the best thing you can do is look after yourself. There's we'll talk about in another video, resources for families too, but there are those out there. So you can talk to other people who maybe tried different things and it worked and it didn't. Other people who will go, I get it. Big thing in addiction is peer stuff. Talking to other people who understand it. It's a thread that runs through the addiction community. People say to their therapists all the time, you don't get it. You weren't out there banging dope on the corner.
Yeah, you don't understand it. You don't. Yeah. And that's where, peer support, I think, is pretty important.
Yeah, someone who can say, someone who can say, hey, I used to shoot up with bottled water too. Yeah. And now I'm doing all right.
Yeah. No, give hope. Yeah.
I'm so distracted because Bandit's on my lap.
He has a kitty on his lap.
I treated him like crap yesterday, and now he's back. Is this setting up a pattern? Should I yell at him every day?
No, you just have to be. You just have to not be afraid of him. He'll go into pet Bandit, and he'll go, and then pet him.
That's because he scratches me.
He doesn't though.
He scratches me.
Anyway, it's only been. What, 5 years, 6 years?
This will last 3 weeks, and then we'll wait till next year. Every 3-week period every year he does this. He's a good comfort animal, though.
No, he is.
He is. Yeah. He's never more than 6 feet away from me anywhere in the house. So,
but anyway, like we said, we will. You're gonna post the in the description below. He's gonna post the crisis line.
There's a crisis text line 741-741. You can text home to it. Text. So if you don't want to talk to somebody, because these are hot topics. So if you watched our video and you got a little, you can text home to 741-741. You'll talk to an actual counselor. You'll get an auto reply first, and then you'll talk to a counselor.
You will, yeah.
National Suicide Hotline will list that below, just for safety's sake, just in case.
Yeah.
And then we'll have some other resources in the upcoming videos. This was addiction, and then the next one we're going to touch on mental health.
Yeah. So. And check out that article I put on Facebook. It has, not only is it a good article, but it has some other resources in there as well that you can click on. And then ultimately help locally for where you're at too. It filters it down locally too, which might be of help. So that'll be there. But I really, the crisis line, I give it to everybody at work, all our patients at work. And I have a few people that use it, and it's texting back and forth, and that's where we're at now. Yeah.
And it's been around, and it's good, and it's any crisis. It could be a crisis of conscience, it could be mental, it could be addiction related, it could be, it's just somebody on the other end.
And feel free to share it too. I think we gotta get that word out, because I remember I was so surprised. I'm like, what? There's a texting, a what? A texting?
It's a brave new world, honey.
I don't have to call a 1-800 number and talk to someone. What?
It's so awkward. Really I mean, obviously, I've used the suicide hotline a few times, and I've used warm lines, which some counties have, which are non-crisis lines run by peers. Yeah. And I never used the crisis text line, I don't think. I talked to a person a couple times, and I've used a warm line a few times.
Yeah, that's another way of getting support.
It's kind of anonymous, which is more desirable sometimes.
Yes, sometimes it is, and I get it. I understand it totally.
So we'll have those resources there.
Yes, we will.
And then we will catch up with you in the next video, probably next week or something.
Yeah, we'll do maybe one a week through the month or something. Yeah, and if you have any more questions, or any comments for us or whatever, shoot us an email, SmokeySteveAndMarc@yahoo.com, and we'll get it in the rotation here.
Good stuff.
So, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope we were able to, be a little bit of help or informational, in some way for you.
I think my hope was to kind of show you, not give you the answer,
right,
but offer you 10 different answers. Something that might fit for your situation, something that might be, I hadn't thought of that, maybe I'll give that a whirl. Because every situation's different, so you need a dozen options to try. Yeah. Because if you've worked with an addict, you've got to try. I didn't get well until the 6th rehab, but I'd like to think it was worth it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for watching. Please do subscribe. Hit the like button and the bell on your way out so you get the alerts. You can follow Mark and I on Facebook at SmokeySteveAndMarc, Instagram, SmokeySteveAndMarc, Twitter at SmokeySteveA. Our email address and our contact info is all listed down below. Thank you again, and I will catch up with you tomorrow for Life After. Somebody told me to stick with caretaking.
I like caretaking.
Life After Caretaking. The jury has spoken. And we will check in with the Widow Beaumont tomorrow.
But if it's going to annoy you, change it.
I'm annoyed at a lot of things I don't change.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, Life After Caretaking tomorrow. It was an interesting week. Friday, we have a really fun Friday episode for you. It's going to be a
Friday
lot
will
of fun.
Cool.
It has to do with, well, mail, but pizza, too. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Saturday, Coffee Talk, and Sunday, we're live at 6.
We're live, and then it's Monday again.
Yes. So remember, everybody, stay safe and stay well, but above all else, please, stay positive. We'll see you next time. Ciao.